Briefing 1. The conflict in the Middle East has escalated, with senior U.S. officials working to facilitate ceasefire negotiations. Since Hamas launched its attack on October 7, 2023, over 43,000 Palestinians have died in Gaza, and approximately 3,000 have died in Lebanon. 2. Phil Lesh, the bassist and lead vocalist of the renowned rock band Grateful Dead, passed away on October 26, 2024, surrounded by family at the age of 84. He was a key member of Grateful Dead and one of the band's primary songwriters. 3. In Parma, Italy, an exclusive club called the 27 Club has been formed by men from various professions who share a passion for the 19th century composer Verdi. New members are only accepted when existing members die or retire, making membership extremely rare. 4. In the lead-up to the upcoming U.S. presidential election, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump conducted their final campaign efforts in the crucial battleground state of Wisconsin. The two have markedly different speaking styles, with Harris being optimistic and Trump using incendiary language. Due to the fragmented nature of the provided content, a cohesive summary cannot be generated. However, I have highlighted the most valuable information points from each article and succinctly summarized the main content. Briefing. As the 2024 U.S. presidential election approaches, serious issues with mail-in ballots have emerged in Erie County, Pennsylvania. Reports indicate that 14,000 voters did not receive their requested mail-in ballots, which could significantly impact the election outcome. To address this issue, a judge has ordered that these voters be allowed to vote in person at polling stations before Election Day. Meanwhile, mainstream media outlets such as the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times have stirred controversy by deciding not to endorse any presidential candidates. This decision has faced strong criticism from Democrats, who view it as a betrayal of democracy. In contrast, the independent media outlet The Guardian has actively supported vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris and garnered significant reader support through fundraising efforts. Additionally, in the final days of campaigning, Harris faced protests from Arab American and Muslim voters in Michigan, who expressed dissatisfaction with the Democratic Party's stance on the Gaza conflict. This posed a challenge for Harris in this critical swing state. Overall, the 2024 U.S. presidential election has entered a heated phase, with various electoral issues and political divisions influencing the election's trajectory. Regardless of the final outcome, this election will be a landmark contest in American political history. November 2, 2024 Briefing. The Wall Street Journal comments on Trump and Harris. The editorial board of the Wall Street Journal published 2 commentaries this week, discussing the pros and cons of former President Trump and Vice President Harris as potential presidents. Regarding Trump, the editorial board criticized his lack of discipline and short attention span during his first term, which hindered his ability to maintain a coherent message. They noted that he is easily influenced by con artists and provocateurs, which could lead to destructive policy decisions. The board also condemned Trump's claims that the 2020 election was stolen and expressed concern over his praise for dictators. In contrast, the editorial's evaluation of Harris was lukewarm. They viewed her as a replica of Biden or Obama, lacking unique policy proposals and failing to make significant achievements during her vice presidency. However, the editorial acknowledged that Harris successfully completed her campaign in a short time. Overall, the Wall Street Journal editorial board suggested that Trump's election, compared to the failure of the Democratic Party, could be seen as a deserved punishment. However, they also warned readers that Trump's second term could pose significant risks. Briefing. Media response ahead of the 2024 U.S. presidential election. Key information points. 1. Major U.S. news media are ramping up efforts to counter anticipated waves of misinformation attacks. They have deployed thousands of staff to polling stations to report on-site, attempting to counter unfounded claims of election fraud made by figures like former President Trump. 2. Outlets like the Associated Press and Fox News have implemented various measures, such as enhancing explanatory reporting and improving graphic visualization, to ensure timely and accurate results on election night. 3. Due to Trump's ongoing dissemination of doubts about the U.S. electoral process and declining public trust in mainstream media, American news organizations are compelled to invest substantial resources to maintain transparency. 4. It is anticipated that the election results may not be available on election night and could take until the weekend to finalize. Media outlets are preparing for potential delays and disputes. Overall, major U.S. news media are taking various measures to accurately and promptly convey information to the public in this challenging electoral environment, aiming to uphold the democratic process. Briefing. 1. The Guardian's subscriber base in the U.S. has surged, largely due to its support for Kamala Harris in the presidential election, while the Washington Post and the Los Angeles Times faced reader dissatisfaction for not taking a stance. 2. Severe flooding in Valencia, Spain, has resulted in over 200 deaths. This extreme weather event is linked to climate change, with scientists suggesting that global warming has doubled the likelihood of such flooding. 3. The EU's greenhouse gas emissions decreased by 8% in 2023, falling below 37% of 1990 levels. However, at the Biodiversity Summit in Colombia, countries showed divisions over funding and subsidies, casting doubt on the upcoming climate negotiations in Azerbaijan. 4. The UK's National Health Service, NHS, will receive an additional £2.26 billion, but this still falls short of what is needed for transformation. Experts argue that the NHS must shift from treatment to prevention and strengthen public health investments, which requires long-term systemic reform and faces significant challenges. Overall, these articles cover multiple areas, including media, climate change, energy transition, and public health, reflecting the numerous challenges society currently faces. The articles succinctly summarize the most important information points, providing readers with a comprehensive and in-depth understanding. Briefing. Phil Lesh's passing. Phil Lesh, former bassist and lead vocalist of the Grateful Dead, passed away on October 26, 2024, at the age of 84, surrounded by family. Lesh was a core member of the Grateful Dead, serving not only as bassist and vocalist, but also as a songwriter for some of the band's famous songs, including Box of Rain. After the band's disbandment, Lesh continued to collaborate with other Grateful Dead members and formed his own band, Phil Lesh and Friends, performing until just months before his death. Saoirse Ronan's appearance on The Graham Norton Show sparks attention. In a recent episode of The Graham Norton Show, Saoirse Ronan appeared alongside Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington, and Eddie Redmayne. During the show, when male guests joked about using their phones for self-defense, Ronan interjected, pointing out that women constantly have to consider how to protect themselves from attacks. This remark elicited a strong response from the audience, who felt Ronan bravely broke the male-dominated conversation. Despite some awkward moments on the show, Ronan and Mescal are actually good friends, having collaborated in the film Foe. In summary, these two articles report on the passing of music icon Phil Lesh and actress Saoirse Ronan's remarks on gender violence during a talk show. Both pieces contain newsworthy information that is likely to engage readers' attention. Briefing. 1. New Conservative Party opposition leader, Kemi Badenoch defeated Robert Jenrick, securing 56.5% of the votes to become the new leader of the Conservative Party. In her inaugural speech, she stated that the party needs to honestly reflect on past mistakes and devise new plans for the next 5 to 20 years to reshape its image and bring a fresh start to the country. 2. Agricultural tax reform sparks controversy. The Labour Party's plan to implement a new inheritance tax policy on farm inheritances has faced strong opposition from farmers and conservatives. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has also called for the government to leave farmers alone, urging a reconsideration of the policy. Labour Party MPs are pressuring the Treasury to raise the threshold for applicable inheritance taxes. 3. The Frontline Podcast. This podcast reports on political conflicts, war situations, and the geopolitical dynamics behind them from a global perspective, helping listeners better understand the increasingly complex and multipolar international landscape. 4. 2024 U.S. presidential election. Trump will face off against Vice President Harris as the Republican candidate. Trump aims to focus his campaign on issues important to voters, such as the economy, immigration, and law enforcement, inviting voters to compare his achievements. Overall, these articles cover the election of the new leader of the UK Conservative Party, the controversy surrounding agricultural tax reform, the reporting of the Frontline podcast, and the latest developments in the 2024 US presidential election. This information reflects the current political landscape changes in both the UK and the US, as well as the complexities of global geopolitical dynamics. Briefing, Brave Journalists. Main content. 1. The number of journalists killed between 2022 and 2023 has significantly increased, reaching one every 4 days. UNESCO calls on countries to take more measures to ensure that these crimes do not occur again. 2. Latin America and the Caribbean have the highest number of journalists killed, totaling 61. North America and Western Europe are the safest regions, with only 6 fatalities. 3. In 2023, 59% of journalists killed were in conflict zones, marking the first time this trend has emerged since 2017. 4. 85% of cases of journalists killed remain unresolved, with lengthy judicial processes, where delays are denials. 5. UNESCO will hold an international conference on journalist safety in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on November 6. Overall, this report focuses on the severe situation of journalists facing violence, calling for the international community to take stronger measures to protect press freedom and the lives of journalists. The report is data-rich and thoroughly analyzes the seriousness and urgency of this global issue. Briefing, the U.S. presidential election system and controversies. 1. The U.S. presidential election uses the Electoral College system rather than direct voting. The number of electoral votes each state has corresponds to its representation in Congress. Most states employ a winner-takes-all method to allocate electoral votes. 2. The Electoral College system has led to instances where candidates receiving fewer popular votes have been elected president, causing controversy. This occurred in 2000 and 2016. Critics argue that this system is undemocratic, while supporters claim it protects the interests of smaller states. 3. Various reform proposals exist, such as the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, but abolishing the Electoral College requires a constitutional amendment, which is challenging. 4. The 2024 election may see a repeat of this situation, as the cryptocurrency investor demographic tends to support Republican candidate Trump. This group, primarily composed of young men, could become a key voting bloc. Overall, the U.S. presidential election system has always been contentious, and the prospects for reform appear dim. The Electoral College system may once again play a role in the 2024 election. Briefing, Italy's new government's offshore asylum processing plan sparks controversy. November 2, 2024. Main content. 1. Italy's new government has introduced an offshore asylum processing plan, transferring some illegal immigrants to Albania for a 28-day review. This plan is a first in Europe. 2. The plan has sparked widespread controversy. Critics argue that this approach resembles a highly controlled prison and does not align with humanitarian principles. A recent ruling by the European Court also undermined the plan, stating that no non-EU country can be considered a safe country. 3. Despite facing significant challenges, this model may attract attention and imitation from other countries amid tightening immigration policies across Europe. The President of the European Commission has also suggested the possibility of establishing repatriation centers outside the EU. 4. Overall, this offshore asylum processing plan reflects the dilemmas and divisions European countries face regarding immigration issues. It raises controversies related to human rights and the rule of law, with an uncertain future ahead. Briefing. 1. The wild boar problem is becoming more serious. The population of wild boars continues to increase due to a lack of natural predators and their high reproductive capacity. Existing control measures, such as trapping and fencing, have become less effective. Experts suggest amending relevant laws to allow the consumption of quarantined wild boars to address the rising population and escalating conflicts with humans. Statistics show that 857 counties in 26 provinces are affected by wild boar damage. Relevant departments are taking measures to try to control the wild boar population. 2. The Third Global Development and Health Communication Forum, held in Beijing. The forum's theme is Media Empowering Fairness and Justice, exploring the media's critical role in achieving the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, particularly how digital media can promote a more inclusive and equitable world. The forum invited over 150 global representatives from government, NGOs, academia, media, and business to share relevant practices and insights. The forum also featured a virtual reality experience area, allowing participants to immerse themselves in the work of frontline healthcare workers. 3. The 7th China International Import Expo brings opportunities for exhibitors. The Import Expo is not only a 6-day exhibition but also has ongoing spillover effects, effectively connecting exhibitors with the Chinese market. Exhibitors have received policy support such as zero-weight customs clearance through the Import Expo, significantly improving the efficiency of entering the Chinese market. The Import Expo has also facilitated connections between exhibitors and major buyers, accelerating the promotion of new products in China. 4. Trump's criticism of Cheney sparks controversy. Trump criticized Cheney as an extreme hawk, but did not directly threaten to execute her. Rather, he expressed dissatisfaction with her support for war in metaphorical language. Some media and commentators distorted Trump's remarks into a threat to execute or shoot Cheney, leading to controversy. This inaccurate reporting reflects a tendency among some to hastily attack Trump without regard for facts, which may undermine their criticism's persuasive power with voters. November 2, 2024, Japan election briefing. Japan held a heated election on October 27, with the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, LDP, led by new Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, and its coalition partners likely unable to secure a majority in the House of Representatives, marking the LDP's worst election result since 2009. According to polls, the conservative LDP and its small coalition partners may fail to reach the 233-seat majority threshold in the House of Representatives. This would severely undermine Ishiba's position, forcing him to seek other coalition partners or lead a minority government. Voter dissatisfaction stems from rising inflation and the political funding scandal involving former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Ishiba has promised to revitalize declining rural areas and address Japan's hidden emergency of population decline through family-friendly policies like flexible working hours. However, he has softened his stance on some issues, appointing only 2 female ministers. In many constituencies, LDP candidates are neck-and-neck with candidates from the second-largest party, the Constitutional Democratic Party, CDP, led by former Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda, who criticized the LDP government's inadequate support for earthquake victims in central Japan. If the LDP coalition fails to secure a majority, it will mark the worst result for the LDP since 2009, significantly shaking Ishiba's standing within the party and potentially forcing him to seek other coalition partners or lead a minority government. November 2, 2024, briefing. 1. Japan's small coalition party, the Citizens' Party, will elect Transport Minister Tetsuo Saito as the new party leader in hopes of reversing its political fortunes. Saito will officially take office on November 9, succeeding Keiichi Ishii, who failed to be re-elected. The Citizens' Party received less than 6 million proportional representation votes in the recent House of Representatives election, losing a total of 8 seats and facing a challenging revival task. 2. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba's decision to call for early elections may backfire. Recent polls indicate that the LDP may not secure a simple majority of 233 seats in the House of Representatives, while the largest opposition party, the Constitutional Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party are expected to gain significantly. Analysts believe that the long-ruling LDP has become disconnected from the public and lacks a strong opposition to provide checks and balances. 3. Japan and the EU announced the establishment of a security and defense partnership, including joint military exercises and defense industrial exchanges, to address regional security challenges posed by China, North Korea, and Russia. This marks the first such security partnership between the EU and an Indo-Pacific country. Both sides will also consider intelligence sharing agreements and collaborate in areas such as cybersecurity and space defense. 4. Due to Typhoon number 21 and a cold front, heavy rain is expected in western and eastern Japan from November 1st to 3rd, potentially leading to landslides, flooding in low-lying areas, and river overflow. Meteorological authorities are urging the public to remain vigilant. 5. The children's picture book The Adventure of the Wardrobe was first published 50 years ago on November 1st, telling the story of two mischievous boys trapped in a wardrobe who traverse to an underground world to battle the rat granny. This book circulated in a kindergarten in Japan until the school relocated, leaving a deep impression and reflecting the complex process of children's growth. 2024 U.S. Presidential Election Briefing. Summary. 1. Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris is actively seeking the support of young voters, hoping that first-time voters will significantly outnumber Republican candidate Trump's efforts to attract young, politically indifferent men. 2. Despite Trump's numerous negative headlines, Democrats seem to have failed to effectively communicate Harris's advantages to voters. The election outcome remains uncertain, reflecting deep divisions in American society. 3. Economic factors are crucial in influencing the election, including rising inflation and immigration issues. The Biden administration's shortcomings in communicating and explaining its policies have also negatively impacted the Democrats. 4. Overall, this election reflects the cultural identity and value differences in American society, rather than merely a comparison of policies and personalities. This deep-seated division makes the election outcome difficult to predict. Without sufficient relevant content, I cannot generate a brief statement indicating no news to report. The issues involved in this election are highly complex, requiring more background information and analysis for a comprehensive summary. 2024 U.S. Election Briefing. This U.S. election is highly anticipated, with Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and Republican candidate Donald Trump engaged in a fierce competition. Key information points. 1. The election is tightly contested, with key swing states set to determine the final outcome. Harris and Trump are making their final pushes in the crucial state of Wisconsin. 2. Trump continues to spread rumors about election fraud in Pennsylvania, raising concerns that he may attempt to overturn the election results in that state and other swing states again. 3. Election officials have indicated that delays and disputes may arise during the election process, and results may take several days to finalize. 4. Both the Democratic and Republican parties have described this election as a life-and-death battle for democracy. 5. Important issues such as immigration, the economy, and abortion will influence voter preferences. Overall, this election is filled with uncertainty, and the outcome will have profound implications for the future of the United States. Regardless of who wins, the U.S. will face a tumultuous situation. As a neighboring country, Canada must be prepared to respond. November 2, 2024 Briefing. Climate change and health impacts. According to The Lancet's 2024 annual report, the health impacts of climate change are becoming increasingly severe and warrant urgent attention. 1. The average number of high-temperature hazard days experienced by individuals globally this year has increased by 50 days compared to 2023, with heat-related deaths rising rapidly. 2. Heat-related sleep disorders have worsened globally, except in parts of Northwest Australia, Brazil, and the Great Lakes region of the U.S. 3. Fewer than 35% of countries can assess early symptoms of heat-related health issues, and less than 10% can evaluate the mental health impacts of high temperatures, indicating a severe lack of preparedness and emergency response capabilities. 4. The fossil fuel industry continues to develop new mining sites, contradicting the urgent need to adopt renewable energy. 5. The Earth has warmed by 1.45 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial levels in 2023, with projections indicating a rise of 2.7 degrees Celsius by 2100. The report calls for urgent action to mitigate the health impacts of climate change and pollution and to improve risk assessment and management. Australia's tax revenue. Australia's tax revenue for the 2023-24 fiscal year reached $610.6 billion Australian dollars, a 6% increase year-on-year, exceeding expectations by $1.94 billion Australian dollars. This indicates a robust state of the Australian economy. Briefing. 1. Australia's largest captive crocodile, Cassius, has passed away at over 110 years old. Cassius was the world's largest captive crocodile, weighing about 1 ton and measuring 5.48 meters long. Its health began to decline on October 15, 2022, and it ultimately passed away on November 2 at a wildlife sanctuary in Queensland. 2. Putoi, a small island at the southernmost point of Hong Kong, attracts many tourists. Putoi Island, located at the southernmost point of Hong Kong, has a population of fewer than 10 people, lacks running water and electricity, and has inconvenient transportation, yet it still draws many weekend visitors. 3. The New York Times Tech Union may strike on Election Day. The New York Times Tech Union has been negotiating with management for over 2 years, without reaching a final contract. The union plans to strike on November 8, Election Day, to pressure management. This could severely impact the normal operation of the New York Times website and app. 4. A railway station collapse in Serbia resulted in 14 deaths. On November 1, 2022, a railway station in Novi Sad, Serbia, collapsed, causing 14 deaths and 3 injuries. Authorities immediately launched rescue operations and investigations to determine the cause of the accident. Overall, these news stories cover events in Australia, Hong Kong, the US, and Serbia, showcasing a rich variety of content. The articles effectively summarize and convey the core information of each news event, achieving concise and comprehensive reporting. November 2, 2024 briefing. 1. A gun battle occurred in the Kashmir region, resulting in the death of a Pakistani Lashkar-e-Taiba (LET) terrorist and injuries to 4 security personnel. In another operation, 2 terrorists were killed by security forces near Anantnag. 2. The Mumbai police have initiated extradition proceedings to return Lawrence Bishnoi's brother, Amol Bishnoi, who is wanted in the US. The National Investigation Agency has offered a reward of 100,000 rupees for Amol's capture. 3. Members of the Chicago Public Schools Board have committed to providing a safe educational environment for all students, following the resignation of the board chair over allegations of anti-Semitism and misogyny. 4. Indian Foreign Minister Jai Shankar will visit Australia and Singapore from November 3 to 8 to attend the 8th ASEAN-India Think Tank Roundtable and meet with leaders from both countries. 5. In the northern Indian city of Ayodhya, millions of Indians are celebrating Diwali, setting a Guinness World Record by lighting 2.51 million oil lamps. This marks the 7th consecutive year that the city has achieved this record. In summary, this briefing covers significant news events, including anti-terror operations in Kashmir, extradition efforts by Mumbai police, leadership changes in Chicago public schools, the Indian foreign minister's visit, and the Diwali record in Ayodhya, reflecting current important news events comprehensively. Briefing. November 2, 2024. Topic: Al Jazeera. 1. Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar was killed by Israeli forces in the Gaza Strip. U.S. President Biden stated that this action is comparable to the killing of Osama bin Laden. Iranian President Raisi expressed condolences, calling it a painful and heartbreaking event for freedom lovers worldwide, especially for the brave Palestinian people. 2. In the upcoming U.S. presidential election, Democratic candidate Kamala Harris and former Republican President Trump held campaign rallies in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Harris urged voters to move past Trump's negative influence, while Trump stated that only those who love America can lead it. 3. The U.S. Supreme Court rejected Republican efforts to prevent Pennsylvania from counting provisional ballots, marking a victory for voting rights advocates. The court ruled that voters have the right to cast provisional ballots even if mail-in ballots have discrepancies. Overall, this briefing addresses the geopolitical situation in the Middle East, the upcoming U.S. presidential election, and significant rulings by the U.S. Supreme Court. These information points are noteworthy and warrant in-depth reporting.